Hello everybody, this is Manda6, and welcome to another Base Game Plus build. These are builds in which I limit what I can use to base game content and the content of only one other pack. This can be one expansion pack, one game pack, or one stuff pack. These builds do not include the use of any custom content. This creates an interesting challenge as a builder, as well as makes these builds more accessible to others on the gallery, be it for simmers who have a limited number of packs installed on their game, or by simmers who are on console and do not have access to downloadable content, such as mods or custom content. Today's build uses content from base game and paranormal stuff. This build was largely inspired by playing The Sims 3 with the Supernatural expansion pack back in the day. I wanted to make a version of the wagon which serves as the rabbit hole location for the fortune-telling and psychic careers that would be usable as a small single sim residence. I used in-game screenshots of that wagon, as well as did some research of traditional Romani traveling wagons, as to look for additional details for a more authentic look. The style of wagon that I was trying to emulate is similar to the Vardo ledge carriage, which has a bit of a porch on either end of the wagon. Getting into the build proper, I used a stilted foundation in order to lift up the base of the house. I end up using a lot of debug items and plants placed with the MoveObjects sheet in order to cover up those stilts as best I can. It also sells the look that this wagon's been parked here for a while on this lot. For the shape of the build, I made a couple of adjustments for sizing. I wanted to keep things very cozy, nothing wider than that was necessary to fit in a double bed along the back end of the wagon. I used the platforming tool in order to make a step-up bedding area, as this would be where the wheel wells or axles of the carriage would need to go for clearance on the back end. For the shape, just long and narrow, I used a little fencing for additional detail. As a lot of these carriages were very ornate, very decorated, had a lot of stylish additions, a lot of gold, a lot of detailing, and used a lot of the more out there details in order to sell the look. For this little part of the roof, a little sun area, that was based on what I found from carriages, that they would have an upper portion with small shutters or small windows that would serve as a skylight to give additional light into the carriage that otherwise would be limited to whatever windows they would have on the sides. For the color scheme, I definitely wanted to go out there with as bright colors, a lot of fun and very like saturated things. For the bed, I ended up using, I believe it's what you get for maxing out the painter career or getting quite high up in the painter career, is that nice bed right there, which has some pretty swatches. I had a hard time for looking up the door for this, as the door that I wanted to get would have been likely in either Laundry Day stuff or perhaps even Cottage Living expansion. I was looking for a door that had a sectioned off top and bottom, because that would be what would be in a carriage, would be a latch door. Now, that there isn't a version of that in either base game or in the paranormal stuff, I just went for something that was ornate. Already getting into the interior decoration, the whole reason I decided to use the paranormal stuff was honestly these curtains. They just have the right vibe for selling that like Nomad Travellers wagon, the cozy fortune teller look with the beads and just the ornamentation of it. So that was the whole start of getting inspired for this build. For the interior, I made sure that there was a stove. I think I do end up sneaking in a fridge somewhere. It might have been when I was playtesting. There's a couple of rearrangements that I do to the build to make sure it can be navigated by Sims that I did off camera. So the build will be slightly different than what you see in in the screenshots and in this speed build here. I had a lot of fun using the different color swatches and sizing down. I think it's just a TV stand, but I always really like this steamer trunk TV stand, and I just like shoved it underneath the bed to kind of give off the vibe of additional storage space, and also just kind of to like nicely clutter the area. A lot of using MoveObjects to size things down, to position things in ways that are interesting, that really sell the look of this like cramped but cozy carriage, and had a lot of fun just adding different ornamentation to it. The paranormal stuff, and also just a lot of the more ornate, crazy base game stuff, has a lot of really good different details to add to a build that usually don't get added to a standard modern build. So it was a lot of fun playing around with color, playing around with different patterns and textures, and getting to play around with that in a build. And especially when it's a smaller build like this, it just sort of, it's a lot easier to dress it up because it's such a smaller space. And on that note, I believe that this build would qualify as a micro home for the purposes of using it as a tiny home residential lot, for those who have Tiny Living Stuff Pack, which definitely could provide some gameplay boosts such as gardening or skill building gains, relationship games, all that. So that is a potential for this this lot in particular. For the exterior, I definitely made use of posts, made use of playing around with the shape. I made an adjustment to the skylight so it looked a little bit more reasonable. It wasn't just a block of windows. I basically used a a symmetrical, smaller roof in the middle to basically section off the skylight into smaller chunks. And here's where I dig through debug mode to try and find additional, not only just additional decor items, but I was desperately trying to find something that I could use for wagon wheels, because I hadn't thought quite that far ahead. So what I ended up using was these hay bales, and that's where the platforming area actually worked out for the larger wheels at the back. Because part of what I was researching with the carriages was the rear end of the carriage had a bit more clearance. It just needed that for a larger wheel at the back, whereas the front wheels would be more for directing the carriage, so that they would be on a movable axle that could be steered. And for the wheel wells, I actually played around a bit with the roofing tool. I had initially been wondering, oh, perhaps I could use a roof adjusted in a way that would sell this as a wheel. So I still kept the hay bale, and ended up using this little half moon roof as a wheel well to kind of just sell the look. And it also allowed me to place the decoration to work as the axle, and additionally just it made the wheel look a little less chunky. It's still quite chunky. It's a hay bale, but it sort of it played around with it just a little bit better to sell the look. And I think for what it is, it turned out all right. And debug and both MoveObjects cheat I used for dressing up that area around the stilts. A lot of bushes, a lot of debug plants, a lot of just kind of squishing things in ways that are interesting in order to both hide the stilts and also sell the sort of more mystical travelers, like in the forest kind of look. Getting to the interior of the build, I was still noodling through the debug item just to find little clutter items. Found a lot of nice, fun wooden decorations. Found even more plants and flowers and some really like nice big plant life and bushes and ground coverage that kind of helped make the coverage not be all the samey. I tried to do a good amount of variation without it being too ridiculous. I might have still gone a little overboard with the variety, but I had a lot of fun. And then I found this tiny little fence. I feel like it's probably from Willow Creek, just based on the style of it. And was I spent quite a long time basically making this like bracketing area that would go around the bookcases or around the cabinetry to kind of this would secure it in place. I end up taking out the bigger one and just using that little small piece there that I'm adjusting. It took a while of precision placing it, and it still sells the look that I want. And also because it's a debug item, your sim will just clip through it. It will not affect the navigation through this little house. But yeah, it just I basically used it to support the bookcase. So perhaps were this on the move, stuff wouldn't get thrown around quite as easily. Ideally, the type of bookcase that you would have would be fully closed off in the first place for having it on a wagon. But this was a fun little way of dressing up an otherwise pretty standard base game bookcase in a way that I hadn't seen before, and I think it kind of works. It's a fun little design. It was a little bit of a pain to work with, but it's one of those, I did it to myself kind of pains. And it basically took a lot of noodling around with the camera tool to get the correct angle, because when you precision place it, it's from whatever angle you're precision placing it from, and that might be slightly off from the wall or slightly off from the bookcase. It doesn't take much for it to get off quite a bit. But other than that, that was the most I used MoveObjects for in terms of like putting things up and moving things around. I do believe I ended up moving a bunch of this like the debug clutter boxes around. I think I ended up moving them closer to the front of the bed, because when I play tested it, that little steamer trunk there, the brown one, ended up being in the way of the sim being able to get into bed properly. So I ended up moving that around for additional selling that this is a traveling carriage, and also to fit with this tiny house aesthetic. Added a lot of cabinetry, a lot of upper storage, which makes a lot of sense. You would want to maximize this space as much as you possibly could. And for decor items, just snuck in what I could here and there. A lot of little fun ornamentation, a lot of use of gold, a lot of just looking around for fun clutter items that otherwise don't typically get used a lot in a modern build because they're either overly ornamental or sort of archaic looking, which kind of that works for this build very well, is having that ridiculous ornamentation or having a more hand carved look to everything. For the lot, I adjusted the wagon back a bit, added even more plants to try and hide the stilts, and played around, added added those nice sort of trees to it. I think I had done this was on my own time, so I might still post it, or I might redo it. But I had done a tree house sort of fairy lights bar using that tree in particular, the pink one, for the realm of Magic World, which is also where I've set back this build. Just you don't need Realm of Magic to download this build, I believe. It was just honestly to have it in the correct type of setting for when I wanted to build it. But anyway, found even more wall items. Those little golden like decorations were kind of perfect for what I had researched. Like there was a lot of use of gold, plating, and just all the ornamentation was very detailed, very hand carved. And there's a lot of those nice details in the paranormal stuff pack as well, like the lights in particular added something. And for this back porch here, I think I ended up just doing a sized up steamer trunk because that just kind of it sells the correct aesthetic. And the whole lot is under 50,000 simoleons. I think it's under like 45 simoleons when I get finished with it. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. The link to download this from the gallery will be in the description text. Please share any ideas you have for build challenges that you would like to see me try, or tell me what you think of the build in the comments. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video.